Good evening, everyone. I'm going to do something I've never completed in my life, which was to be brief. True story, when I told my mom how long I had, I'm still haunted by the intensity and length of her laughter last night. A big thank you to the business record and to the rest of you to give me a reason to wear a bra and put on pants. I'm just kidding. Maybe not about the pants part. Ladies, you know. It's good. We're off to a good start. In truth, for the last 15 years, I have been focused and fascinated on what does it mean to be a great leader and what does that look like. But I want to be really clear that when I talk about being a leader, I am not talking about a role or a title. A role or a title does not make you a leader, it just gives you power and authority. But when we talk about leadership, leadership is a verb, it's an act, it's a behavior. It is something, as my colleague and mentor back there, Dr. Chris Wildermuth, taught me, it is something some of us do some of the time. Now, what I've learned over these 15 years is that there is one critical distinctive factor that separates the great from the good from the bad from the worst, and that is self-awareness. Now, some of you might be thinking, whew, good, I'm really self-aware. I want to lovingly and honestly tell you, probably not as much as you think. We are simply not as self-aware as we would hope to be and we think we are. Now, I highlighted this study in my notes. Dr. Tasha Urich, she's a professor and psychologist who studies the idea of self-awareness. And she did this study for over 5 years where they investigated 5,000 people, where they wanted to see where did you think you were and where were you really? And the results were pretty staggering. That when asked, how self-aware are you, about 90% of them said, and I quote, highly self-aware. Now, when we talk about self-awareness, I want to define it real quickly. That it isn't just how well do I know myself, but it's how well am I paying attention to how I'm thinking and how I'm showing up. There's also the outside factor, how well do I know how other people view me and the actual impact I make. So keep this in mind when I talk about this. They then evaluated and assessed the actual behaviors that were indicative of self-awareness. Do you want to know what that number dropped to? Not 75, not 50, not 25, 10 to 15%. So if we look at this room, this group of 4 tables, congratulations, you're self-aware. No, you're probably not. Don't applaud. You're good. No, okay. But because if we're asking ourselves, am I self-aware? We're actually asking the wrong question. Because self-awareness isn't a destination, it's an ongoing journey. It's like remodeling your home. Once you figure out the bathroom and get that remodeled, then you go, oh, my bedroom is like a piece of junk and I need to do that. And oh, I've discovered this and I need to fix that. And it just keeps on going because the house is never done because we're humans. And the thing is, self-awareness is difficult because it invites us, it challenges us, and it requires us to be curious, to be courageous, and to be able to choose to show up with intentional action and not just positive intent. And we need to be curious to ask the right questions and to be courageous enough to see and hear and own the real answers. And I can talk from personal experience. Seeking and owning and hearing when you have failed, or worse yet, when you have hurt or harmed someone, maybe unintentionally, and maybe because of reflection you realize maybe a little intentionally, that's hard work. And the most powerful transformations and growth I have been honored to witness in the work that we do is when someone is willing to step outside of their good intentions, to explore their shadow intentions, and to own and create a different impact. And here's the thing, knowing isn't the same as doing. It's not. In fact, my colleague Memory Schrader, who's back there, just shared this morning that in fact, once you become aware, you have a greater responsibility to do something with it, because it's almost worse if you didn't know it. Thank you, 1 minute. We all have stories about what this looks like when somebody isn't aware, but I want to quickly, in my last moment, share with you a story of what it looks like in practice. I have the privilege of working and coaching a chief operating officer, and we had just completed what we call a gap audit. This is where we have conversations and we gather insights to understand where is his impact aligned and where is there gaps. And I can tell you there was some pretty hard feedback he received. Multiple people on the team, both men and women, shared that there were times when they felt like he acted from a place of gender bias. Women spoke towards women based on how he spoke and what they delegated. And you can imagine this was not easy for him to hear. And so when we came back together, he said, you know, Sarah, if you would have asked me this or told me this feedback a year ago, I would have said, no way this is true. I consider myself a feminist, no way. And if you would have asked me how confident I was in saying that, I would have said 100%. But he took time to reflect. He got curious. He was courageous. And as he reflected, he goes, I see where this might be true now. I only ask women to take notes or do administrative tasks. Or when two people are struggling to communicate, I would step in and say something like, I think what she's trying to say is this. And he goes, I thought I was being helpful. And oh shit, now I realized I was mansplaining. Now here's the thing that makes it so remarkable, is that it's not just that he got curious about the feedback, but he also got curious about his reaction to the feedback. He got curious about his thinking. He was courageous to explore where and how it might be true. And not only did he change his behavior, but he owned it in front of his team. So let me ask you this, I'm wrapping up. Who would you rather work with? The person who says, no, that can't be true? Or the person who is willing to wonder, how might it be? Because a true act of leadership isn't always about getting it right, but it's not always about being right, but it is always about making it right. So thank you all so much.